Hey, I'm AJ,
I'm Zach.
and this is Fresh Tactics.
All right, guys. So today's topic we have for you actually has to do with a way that we conduct classes here at Hinge as well. And it's just kind of a topic I see in the kettlebell community. So this will go to you out there that are coaches, that are kettlebell lifters or coaches, athletes, Instagram fans, of just like seeing people do stuff and wondering what's going on. And what we're going to address today is flow and like what kettlebell flow is, more so like what I look at what kettlebell flow is.
Because it is different than a lot of people's definition.
It's completely different. And I can tell you what I don't like about flow, what I do like about flow, and why I'm like one of the big people on there. I'm like, flow's not a crime. Like we made like a reference, like our gym being like a skate shop as far as like what you wear. And I feel like it's like the same thing. Like skateboarding's not a crime. Like flow's not a crime. Like if you do it right, like, but it has to be done right.
That's going to be our next shirt. Kettlebells are not a crime.
Yeah, they're not. So, but it's like American swings and bicep curls. You know, it's like all good things. But when I'm talking about flow, so if you guys happen to be on the social medias and you've seen people doing ridiculous things with kettlebells, I'm not talking about like feats of strength and things like that. Like it very much looks like some kind of rhythmic gymnastics, like ribbon dance, but with a kettlebell, and it's probably a really light kettlebell. And if you have kettlebell knowledge, you're probably also like, it's wrong. Like usually the movement patterns are wrong. And it just looks weird and people like flow. And so you asked me about flow 16 months ago, and I would have said it was fucking stupid and I don't like it. And then I just started realizing the things I don't like about flow. And it's funny too, because I brought this up to Jeff Marchone. And it's because Jeff had what is called the H-to-H system, hand-to-hand system. So he did a lot of like kettlebell juggling. People know him from that. He took his kettlebell juggling and he integrated it into like different movements and stuff like that. Like around the world, people know around the world, like, but he'd go between his legs and like lunge back. And like he had a bunch of different vocabulary and stuff for that. And he, like, if we go out and teach courses, sometimes he'd do an H-to-H course the day before, like a 2-hour workshop.
Or do a little demo, which is always popular.
Yeah, a demo too. Well, that's like the juggling. That's the juggling. The H-to-H is like a structured thing. But that's still the problem with it is it's too complex. It's way too complex. I'm like, because me as a programmer, and like in programming, I'm talking about like CrossFit or like let's just say in like general strength and conditioning, like the idea with what you would see, like with what Jeff did with H-to-H was it was so long, it was coming out of his head as he was doing it. And like, so he would teach the class and then he'd be like, okay, let's do this together. He's like, now do 6 of these, now do 8 of these, now do this. And it was this continuous thing going. And you can find old videos of Jeff like doing this. And like, sometimes it's even simple stuff like hand-to-hand snatches. And then he's like, now cleans, now presses, now this, now that. And it's just like this very long, large sequence
Where it wouldn't necessarily be repeatable because people would be like, okay, what's next? What are we doing? Yes.
So my problem with things like that, where if you're a programmer, a coach, trainer, whatever, and you try to put like a sequence of maybe like 3 or 4, like we'll go 4 starts happening. It can get complicated in 2. In a complex, which, you know, kind of wraps up the word there anyways, people get lost and they're looking at the whiteboard, they're breaking their rhythm, they're not getting as much weight. They're not doing what you want them to do. It's not very feasible in a class situation or in a training situation unless you're making it up in your head as you're going. Okay. So I referenced that out because there's been a lot of chatter I've seen lately in the groups that I associate myself with as far as other kettlebell lifters or coaches and stuff. And people are like, they're like, flow's stupid, da-da-da. And it's funny because we now have flow classes at our gym. So I always am like,
you're just giggling at your computer screen.
I don't look to be contrarian or like combative with people, but I'm like, let's educate, because my flow classes and what I consider flow is not what most people would consider flow. Like there's not as much dynamic, crazy movement to it. Like it's not as much there, but it's very long, large sequenced complexes that I know if I wasn't standing in front of a group, which is how we do our flow classes, which we'll talk about, they wouldn't be able to follow it.
However,
Yes.
you're a responsible coach and you assess who is in your class and what their abilities are.
No, I mean, what I meant by that is like if I was writing that on a whiteboard
Oh, fuck no.
and it was like 15 movements and I'm like, okay, go guys, it'd be a fucking shit show. It'd be a total shit show. Like, so yeah. As far as assessing the classes, we'll get to that. But like, so for me, and a lot of people have gone out and they say bad things about flows and stuff like that. And I'm totally with them on a lot of it. They're like, that's light. You're not strength training or whatever. You're really not conditioning with like that lightweight. You're really just kind of posturing with what you're doing to make it look like you're doing something.
Using up that whole minute on your Instagram video.
Exactly. And like, what is someone really getting out of this? Like, and then people are like, well, flow is for connectivity, body awareness, and like I'm like, okay, you're selling me on something that's like Indian clubs, and I'm sure there's some people that like Indian clubs that just spit their coffee out when I said that, and they're pissed. All right, I'm not a huge fan of Indian clubs. I'm just not. I don't, for my style of training, I don't really do a lot of them. Now the people that are out there that love them, and they're like, burn the witch. They're so mad at me right now. You probably feel the same way I feel when I'm like, no, I like flow. And they're like, it's stupid. How do you use it? And that's really what we're at here now. So when I think about, again, flowing, it's a long sequence of movements that would be pretty much unable to be reproduced easily inside of 6 classes throughout the day. Like, it wouldn't really work very well. And that's how I see it. So when people have these conversations and like I see them and they're like, it's stupid, you can do them heavy. Like you can do anything heavy. And like for me, honestly, when I see a complex that's outside of, like some people post complexes, they're like, here's blank complex. For me, when you get outside of like 3 lifts, like you're like losing the potency of the complex. Like it's pretty far out there as far as remembering the movements. And then under fatigue, are they going to remember what they're at? They're like, oh, well, maybe they won't be that fatigued. But like, if you're looking for more maximal weight, then yeah, if they're thinking like, okay, I got to do blank next. And at this point, I'm not even talking about a kettlebell. I could talk about a barbell. There's what's the big complex? Do you remember the big complex? I think ZA does it. It's like, I think it's.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I don't remember what's in it.
Is it like, I could be completely wrong if you guys are out there like Zach's wrong and full of shit. But it's equivalent of like, I think it's like 2 power cleans and then a push press and then 2 full cleans and then like a power jerk, I think. And then like 2 like hang full cleans or something like that. And then like 2 split jerks. And it might even be more than that. I think it might be like 9. It's a lot. And that like under fatigue, that mental fatigue starts coming into it too. So like if you're working with like a group of people, like for some people, that's something doable. For some people, when they do that, like the coach literally needs to stand there and tell them what they're doing next, so they're not moving around and rotating with weight and things along those lines. So it really just comes down to complexity. And like I'll call complexes, I'll call complexes series, I'll call all kinds of different things, like in chains. You know, I'm like, today's a chain, and in my head, a chain's a little different than something else. And the flow is really just a really big complex. I don't know.
Well, and it kind of sounds like 4 is that magic number, right? Like 3,
yeah.
You can kind of keep it in your head and keep track of your reps and your rounds. Past 3 movements, the wheels kind of start to fall off a little bit for people.
Yeah, guys. And when I'm saying this, like for you as a coach, you're like, oh no, I totally got my crew dialed in on this. I'm like, hey man, I've been doing this for a long time and have big classes, and multiple people run through lots of kettlebell complexes in dictated strength wise, or doing it for conditioning, or having it inside of a CrossFit style workout. And it just, they can get lost, and people can get lost doing anything, but when you start making something overcomplicated, that's the thing. So, and that's kind of like where we went with flow. Now, before I keep just like kind of beating the dead horse on that, the way I want to expand upon it is, when I came to you about this flow class idea.
Oh, I did not like it.
Oh yeah. You hated the idea.
But also, I don't think I really understood. Well, I didn't understand it until you took me through one.
Yeah, let's role play here for a second. All right.
Let's get weird.
Let's get weird. No, but like, just kind of retake me back through this whole situation, and like you can even be me, and I can be you. I can answer, and just like anytime like you say something, I'm like, that's fucking stupid. That's pretty much how you were talking to me. So we won't actually do that. But like, do you remember the conversation when that went down? Like how I, like the pitch I even tried to give you?
Basically, what I understood was it was a shorter class with kettlebells, depending on the movements or the flows or whatever you're doing. You could go lighter, heavier. You could have multiple bells out, and it was going to either complement the hour of training that would follow, or you could just straight do that half-hour class and head out, and you would be perfectly fit. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking, what the fuck what are you even talking about? Like, there's no, I just didn't believe it was possible.
Yeah, that was a soft pitch. It was definitely a soft pitch. Like, I'm not convinced on what you were just trying to sell me either.
Yeah, because it wasn't, I was like, what are you even talking about? Like, we're a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
What? No.
Well, not only are we...
Why are you subs? Stop trying to make kettlebells happen. They're not going to happen.
Quit trying to make that happen. So as far as like the pitch and what AJ said with like the CrossFit gym, because we also like pride ourselves on being a different style of CrossFit, and we're original CrossFit, really, like more constantly varied, whatever. We won't get into that. But like there was 4 years. How long were we down in Soto? I didn't have CrossFit
4 years.
I paid my affiliate fee. We were Northwest Strength Performance. I didn't need the name on the building, but like we had a stylistic approach that was similar to that. And it was like we had the 1 hour, and we had our classes structured into the hour, and we had some programs that maybe ran longer than that and things along those lines. We never really tried to dedicate a shorter class time, especially because we're so big on warm up here and proper understanding of the workout.
Oh yeah, that was the other thing.
Yeah, we were cutting it down to 30 minutes, and I was like, this will work with what we're doing. Okay, guys. So this is not like, I guess vague booking doesn't really necessarily apply to Instagram, does it? This isn't like where you see people on Instagram, they're like, I get a lot of questions about my diet, and here's what I'm eating today. Or like, I get a lot of questions about my skincare routine, and here's what I'm doing.
Literally no one is asking.
Literally nobody. I love like seeing things, and I'll look at AJ and I'll be like, literally no one asked this question. All right. So I don't actually like make up content. Like if enough people ask me, and I'm the worst, the warm up is the one that I've been asked for years. And I literally just had another message. Yeah. So Carissa, I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah. I'm totally sorry. I totally messed up.
Sorry.
Yeah. Totally sorry. She just asked me for the warm up, and I was like, I need to make sure I get that up. Anyway.
Is it too late now to say sorry?
Yeah, but I'll get the warm up. But
in 2021.
Yeah. But more so like when I'm talking about like this, like we do get a lot of questions on how, because I do kind of put it out there. We do these flow classes. It's different. It's new. It's like they exist in your CrossFit, and you've taught the courses for CrossFit, and like CrossFit accepts what you guys do. Like that's how like they think kettlebells should be doing too. And now you're offering these flow classes. I've seen these things like because Onnit posts a lot.
It came from the 530 flow.
I love it. I love doing that. Like the creature feature of the day. Here's like the hideous thing that nobody wants to acknowledge is there.
And
like,
let's be real, Zach's everyone knows Zach's flow classes are the hardest out of all of our coaches, for sure.
Well, I make the rules and I break the rules, so I make them a little different. But the thing about it is, so people have asked. So here's the question or the answer on this, as far as how we run the flow class. They are a 30-minute class. It is very different than the way we run our traditional class. Very different. Part of that is, and we're big on people being on time, but like you have to make sure you're getting there on time, because the warm up starts at the mark of the half hour, and that warm up is very active. It will get you prepared for athletic movement. It'll knock the rust off the joints. Everybody likes to laugh when I say that. But it's also inside the warm up, you are learning the complex, i.e. the chain or the flow, however you want to look at it.
Basically, if you're 2 minutes late, you just missed a third of the warm up and you can't participate in class.
You could be. Yeah, exactly. So as we're building these big chains, we're like doing the movement review, and we're like we start with a lighter bell and we're moving into a heavier bell, and each time we're adding in another component to the flow. And at a certain point, I'm like, that's what we're doing. Now, when I say that's what we're doing, it's because I'm doing it too. AJ's doing it too. It's not like the traditional CrossFit class where the coach is the coach. We are leading the class. Now, this is not like, trampoline class that you see in like 24-hour fitness, and they're like, let's go, and they start bouncing off bats and like picking it up, or like a spin class. Yeah,
where they have the little weights in their hand.
Yeah,
and they're like, okay, let's stand.
Exactly. They're seeing it being performed, All right. Usually too, I'm like, hey, let my weight be a guide. This is what I'm doing for today, and this is a lighter weight for me because I plan on training again later. So you should definitely be using a heavier bell than me right now. Or if you're like, that's the appropriate bell weight for Zach, then I should be doing blank. So they also have an automatic feedback. So they're getting the instant tie to the coach on what they should be doing.
And then they all hawk off each other.
Yes. Yeah. They all look at each
Which
other's
is
bells.
amazing.
Yeah. So we create these different series and systems. And like AJ kind of alluded to, sometimes we think with, okay, they might be sticking around for the strength portion of the next class. So that's what I'm like, when I try and like, you know, communicate with other guys that are, and ladies that are in the community. And when I mean community, I'm talking about kettlebell community right now. I'm like, here's why I actually like flow now and what I'm into it about. And it's not that it replaces your strength training. It can be done with heavier bells. It is only 30 minutes when we do it. So other people might be doing hour-long flow things and getting really heavy or whatever. Cool. Our 30-minute classes, like you can get heavier, and you can, if you work in proper positioning, have a strength return. But you're not going to get super heavy per se, like as far as like that stimulus of barbell training. So some people then stick around to do the strength portion that comes first in our CrossFit classes before the WOD. Or, and I'll let you go here in a second because I'm sure you have something great to say. Excuse me. They've been doing it for 10 years. They've been doing it for 10 years.
And that's what I was
They're over getting chewed up by the barbell.
And that's what I was going to say. Some people are just in a different season of their life.
Yeah.
Either because, like Zach said, they've been coming to CrossFit, 4 or 5 days a week for the last 10 years, and they're tired of that CNS fatigue that you can get from lifting heavy, and they can lift heavy because they have been doing this a long time. Or they're in a season of their life that's unrelated to the gym, like Noah, for example, 6-month-old baby, big job at Samsung, probably wants to see his wife once in a blue moon. So he comes in from 5:30 to 6, and normally he doesn't stay. He just heads back home so he can hold his kid for half an hour so his wife can get ready for work. But for him, that works. And I think what I'm understanding you're saying on the strength part is that with the flow, if you go heavy with the bells, it's heavy enough to stimulate your muscular system.
Yep.
But it's not really heavy enough in most cases to stimulate your CNS.
Yeah, it's not going to cook you per se like that. And to some of you, if that doesn't make any sense, then you're not the ones that are questioning me about it. There you go. Like the ones that are like, well, what about this and that? Like, what part of it is that I got hurt, I got injured, and I often reference my injury on here. It had nothing really to do that's just having a sport in life. And things added up.
Well,
and
did the doctor say that they were surprised that it didn't happen earlier?
He said for sure it probably happened in high school, that I probably got dropped on my head wrestling. He was like, yeah, it was probably a long time ago.
By your brother.
Yeah, and he's like, you probably had what you call a stinger. And we all are familiar with a stinger if you play football or anything like that. And like maybe had some like numb arm or stuff. And he's like, that's probably when that disc moved, Zach. And it's just been waiting and it finally happened.
Ticking time bomb.
But as far as like me, like I don't even lift as heavy. Like that kind of brought about the end of like competing in certain events for me. Even like Girevoy Sport, I really don't think I can compete in that, even though those weights are lighter per se. Just because I can't really lock out my right arm completely, so it'd be all tricep, and it would fail out eventually. But more so, what I'm talking about that is like it changed up the way I train. Like I changed the way I train too, and I still wanted to be hard charging, doing things. And there was like a year and a half at least, almost 2, where I couldn't really have a barbell on my back because my super spinatus like went away. So my arm would like slant.
Went into hiding.
Yeah.
Witness protection.
Yeah, it was creating my like hips to get off sway. And like, even for me, I was having an issue with that. So if you're a hardcore strength guy, like that's your main thing you love and you want to do it, then like you need to train the way you want to train. But some people that's not going to work for them, and they can't even train like that anymore. So the fact that they can't train like that anymore, you need to find something to keep them stimulated and keep them training. All right, that's the big thing that we're looking for. And that, like, even for you, like, you ended up falling in love with those classes. I mean, like, what is it that you like about them?
Just the whole, like, it's the same reason that when I was in high school, I like going to boot camp with my mom or spin class or whatever. You can work really hard without driving yourself into the ground. And the way, when people talk about like, oh yeah, I worked out this morning and I feel great. If I do a regular 6 a.m. class with heavy back squats or whatever BS we're doing, or heavy snatches.
Squats are not BS.
But I need, it's 11 a.m. and I'm like falling asleep sitting up on my desk. But if I do a flow class from 5:30 to 6, I'm fucking jazzed and ready to go. 6 a.m. peeps are like, they literally told me, I miss when we didn't have 5:30 a.m. classes because you and Zach weren't so cheerful. And I miss it. Could you be quieter? I'm just like, hello, it's morning. And it, like, we have both felt it just like revs up your metabolism.
Yeah.
We're in, even if our other training is kind of hit and miss, just whatever due to sickness or life or whatever, we still look good. We still feel good. We still are eating a ton.
Well, and like I said, I usually will train I'll usually do the flow class with the intention of training again in the day. So maybe I don't go as heavy as I would, but it's still actually pretty heavy compared to what, like, some people I know who lift weights. I'm like, dude, that's my moderate weight in a flow class.
Yeah.
Like, and you're grabbing that for your strength work. So,
well, 30 minutes of consistent movement is just, it's good for you.
Yeah.
That's what we're built to do, right? Yeah. We're not built to sit around all day, every day. It's
more like it's kind of like a long, slow kind of style, like, except it's not. And what I mean by that is, like, it's just a greater duration of time you're doing it. Now, that's the same thing I say I don't like with CrossFits, where it's just like the 20-minute AMRAP every time you come in. But part of that is because if you're just like, here is a round of this and do it for 20 minutes, the intensity will drop off. The amazing thing about flow is that you can have out different weights, you can have different stimulus. You have created these complexes or flows, whatever you want to call them, to deliver an impact that's hard. And I have done it, and this is kind of what I was getting for. Like, I've done it where I'm like, I'm training again later in the day, and when I go to train, I'm like, dude, I kicked my ass. I'm like, what did I do? And, like, so sore. And, like, it's so funny because I'm so sore from that thing I was doing as opposed to my major lift. And, like, it's an interesting thing for myself as well. And part of this came about because I knew for a fact. So, like, when I brought AJ the idea of the flow class, it wasn't just because I wanted to integrate flow. It was because I was like, how can I get quick, fast kettlebell workouts into the gym? And how am I going to do this? How am I going to structure it quickly into the warm-up? How am I going to do that fast? And what I came up with was like, well, I do it all the time. I knock out 20-minute workouts at home, 15-minute workouts at home, and I do a couple stretches and then I knock it out. But I kind of like go slower as I'm going, and then I speed, like negative split or whatever I do, and I start extending or adding more reps. But that's in my head. And when coaches and programmers have it, like, we've all done it before. You and I have done it, like Coach's Choice or anything. We're like, I made a mistake. This workout's supposed to be 5 rounds. It's 3 rounds. Like, this is going to be...
Those 30-minute AMRAP turned into 20.
Yes, exactly. So that can happen with anything. So the cool thing with the control of that class is how you dictate it. But again, it's on the coach to have to, like, run the actual class.
But it keeps the intensity high for both the coach and the athletes, because the coach, you have to keep it together enough to be talking everyone through it the whole time, which can be challenging when it's hard. And then for the athletes, it feels way different for them than that 20-minute AMRAP, because they don't know what's coming next. And so they're working hard the entire time. And when you change things up on them, you might get a couple groans or whatever, but they know that they're getting fitter and they're better for it.
Oh yeah. When I'm, like, consistent on my flow classes too, like, when I say consistent, I'm teaching at least 2 of them during the week on top of my other training. If I'm traveling, then I might miss them. But when I'm, like, consistently getting in those 2, I'm way more jacked. Like, my body composition is way different. And it's just because I'm getting up early one of the days too. And I'm doing, like, when people ask me, they're like, hey, like, they're talking about tweaking their diet and stuff. I'm like, why don't you start with just making a couple flow classes a week, see what happens. Like,
we've had very few people take us up on that offer so far.
They go get the RP app.
5:30 a.m. is rough for people.
They diet harder for 3 weeks and then they fall off. And I'm like, you can just add something. And, like, I'm not somebody who always say just more volume is going to help, because it's designed not to beat you up that bad.
Exactly. In this case, it's very sustainable.
Yeah, very sustainable. And, like, we have like some people that come in, they're hard chargers, and like they were hardcore hour classers, and now they like the 5:30 class. They come to that, and they get after. They come in, they're like, oh yeah, it's Zach or it's AJ, like let's bang, like let's go, like we're ready to get after this.
Not
thing.
let's literally bang.
Yeah, I know. People didn't see. Actually, there's a video, so they saw like I had my hands up.
Don't make that.
Yeah, but the idea though is like they're ready to get after it that day, like, and they're ready to go. Now, past that, like we have people that are in that same class who can't operate currently in our other class because they are working around some injuries, or they can't like bear as much weight. So they feel like this class is better for them. They're getting 30 minutes of movement, so they're not like getting stagnant. So it's a very, very, very valuable tool. Now, yes, if you're trying to only like make your name off of doing weird flows, and then you're like, Instagram challenge, you're up, bro. Like, no, I don't believe in that. And I legit thought Jeff was going to punch me, which I think a lot of the times Martone was going to touch me.
Oh, when you
I was
talked
like,
about flows.
I was like, bro, you're like the godfather of flow. I was like, I'm serious. Remember how I always told you like hand to hand was to put it in there? He's like, what are you talking about, man? I was like, I'm serious. Like you like yeah, man. And like it was true, because it was why I never did a lot of H2H or hand to hand in our classes. Like it didn't fit into the program.
You're about to see the technical side of technical athlete.
Yeah, exactly.
Duck.
Yeah, like it was hilarious. So getting people in like that was like a big thing. So again, I don't think we actually explained the whole flow class in general, where I could come in and you get it going. So pretty much starts on the half-hour mark. The coach starts warming up some brief joint mobility, kind of stretching as you're going through it, and then you have a bell, and you tell everyone to have a bell out when you start, and then you start with maybe like low swings into cleans, or you start building the movement patterns that you're looking for, and now things that you integrate in as you're doing it. Sometimes we'll have air powered stuff incorporated into it. Sometimes I do that. I feel like it breaks my rhythm or flow, if you want.
I got a little gun shy with that, because one time I had, I think, 5 bikes out, and then all of a sudden there were 8 people in class, and I was like frantically pulling out air powered equipment. So that's one.
I'll change it up to an EMOM every once in a while. That happens. That means every minute on the minute, guys. So you rotate each station.
And then split people up. Oh yeah.
So you do that, and then usually you'll have these complexes, and there can be multiple complexes. Like I'm kind of known for having multiple ones. Some of the other coaches have one singular one, and it's a bit longer. Even if I have a long one, though, it's like, maybe then there's another one. And sometimes the weights ladder up, sometimes the weights ladder down, depending on how many people there are, so we can like flush out the class. Now, between the complexes, there is like active movement, and that can be basic body weight movement. We're really big into like Hindu push-ups and stuff here, which is a shout out to like old school catch wrestling and Carl Gotch. And so like when we like when people see some of the stuff we do, like they have no idea why we're doing it. They're like, oh, they're doing those weird like push-ups because it's like yoga-esque. I'm like, no, man, I got that from catch wrestling. Like I got that from wrestling.
Zach's a wrestling hipster too.
Yeah.
As well as a comic book hipster.
Yep. All the hipster
Did it before
things.
It was cool.
It was super cool. It's still not cool.
It's still not cool.
But we do that, and then like we will follow that up with what we call like trunk work, and then some people would call this core work, which makes me roll my eyes. And then when people come to our classes, like I like when we do the core work too. But here's the thing behind it. Nothing we do here is just because, really. Like there's always a goal orientation behind it. And I put it up in one of my posts the other day when I was talking about, I was like, and I actually laid out like what I did that day in the flow class for people, because some people ask like, what are you doing and how do I do that? And I'm like, it's kind of hard to recapture.
It's hard to recreate.
Like, I'll have an idea in my head when I'm going in class, but then if there's 10 people, it's going to change. Kind of lost my train of thought on that.
When you write down everything.
Oh yeah, so yeah, the trunk work thing, that's where I was going with that. But the trunk work thing was, like I wrote about trunk work, and everything we do is for a reason. We work gymnastic shapes. Like we are constantly reinforcing the hollow, so people can move.
Literally every day.
Every day, and it's meant to advance people's gymnastics. I don't do that to give people sick abs, all right, or make them feel the burn. Like
a side benefit.
Yeah, it's a side benefit, and if they think that, then they think that. But me as the coach and the programmer, I know what I'm doing.
And if you're a coach and you are not working people's trunks every day, you are doing it wrong.
They need that connectivity. They need to have that understanding. How hard is, like, you see people like lose themselves in pull-ups and things like that. So if these people are going to have a benefit of a transfer
we saw it
from the flow
course
class
this weekend.
Oh yeah, from the flow class to one to the other, then you definitely need it. Yeah, from who at the course this weekend?
I'm not going to name names, man. This is public.
It's public, man.
It's public.
I thought you were just going to say
this is going to get released in like 4 weeks, and so they're not even going to know what course we're talking about.
You never know which course we're talking about. Yeah, but the idea here is like constructing these elements together creates a really fun, dynamic class. So yeah, there is that movement exploration part that people talk about when they use the word flow, but it's hard. Like it's hard. Like it's a hard training class. And like our standard weights are probably like a lot heavier than what people would go with. And again, that's in their culture. Like it came from the 53-35 CrossFit thing. Like, and that was just like a standard weight. That's like the lightweight kind of.
Because there was no other weights available when you first opened up.
When I say 53-35, guys, I mean like guys kettlebell weight, ladies kettlebell weight. And I tell this when we talk at our courses as far as like what I expect instructors to be able to operate at when we like tell them progressions and like, hey, if you're gonna do something, and I say like as a competent kettlebell coach, you should be able to operate at 53-35. And people
or 24-16 for you metric folks out there.
24-16, yeah. Which is funny because I actually talk 24-16 way more when I'm out at the course and people don't know what I'm talking about. But I say that and then people look at me and they're like, why are those weights? It's the classic CrossFit weight, and it's yes and no. And when I say yes and no, it's because when we opened up the first gym, we only really had 53-35s, and I was still doing pretty advanced kettlebell training. We were even like having people do long cycle, and I'm like, these guys, I'm like, oh, we got 53-35 guys. We're going with 53s today, and there's like a 20.
You better not take all the 35s because the girls need them.
Well, not even that. They just didn't have the option. And we're like, there's like a burpee penalty, like 25 burpees if you set the bells down. Like it was intense.
This was in what we call the attitude era.
This is the attitude era. We'll have a whole attitude era. Maybe we'll have some guests on for attitude era. And now black out most of it.
Chris Kassler, you're officially invited on this podcast.
No, I wouldn't even say Chris was full attitude era.
Oh,
like
really?
Destiny Atano.
Oh, Destiny's got some stories.
Is attitude era. Like, yeah.
She's got 2-year-old twins at home. Zach's yelling at her to get back on the sled.
Chris didn't get into like kettlebells really till we were at Morgan Junction. Like I'm talking West Seattle, like my very first gym.
West Seattle, what up?
Yeah.
I wasn't here either. I was never here. I never would have survived.
But what I'm saying is there was a lot of high-end athletes that were operating with 53-35, and there was just everybody else that was there to get fit, and we're like, this is what we have to work with. And now I have a whole bunch of kettlebells.
We literally have from 10 pounds to 160.
But it also makes everything like advancement quicker for people because they can work with weights they're comfortable with.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I was a younger coach too, and I was stupid, and I tell people, I'm like, when I say,
you heard it here first.
Well, you heard me. What I just said too is like an instructor should be comfortable doing these workouts with this and demoing it, and then that kind of like reflects in the community of our gym, a culture of our gym. Like even today, like there was some newer people that were doing a strength piece, and they were grabbing weights that they shouldn't be grabbing for their 3 heavy double kettlebell front squats. It's like that is the workout weight I would post, and if I posted that, you would grab it to try and do 20 reps, which means you need to get heavier for the 3. But again, that's also in the context of very focused. You know, there's breaks between the sets. There's heavy explanation. There's a lot of priming before we get going because you're going to be undertaking something very heavy and very challenging. And if you're used to being able to operate in the flow classes with heavier weights, you'll be able to tap into that heavier system. Otherwise, you're just going to be building proficiency in the movement as you go, and you'll become much more familiar with it. It's like when people want to join our gym and they're like, hey, I want to come to the 5:30 class. Like, you can't. Like you need to go.
Oh no!
You need to go to foundation.
Not
first.
only do you need to go to foundations, you need to come to regular classes for, I would say, a couple months for most people before they jump into 5:30 because it is fast moving and you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah. So like the thing behind it, again, this is me going back to somebody's just like, well, Zach, what you're explaining isn't really the flow I don't like, and it sounds like the flow most people don't like is the same thing I don't like, but it goes back to the don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like there's a time and purpose for these really big chains or complexes or series or what you want to do. And it has given like new sustainability to people that maybe were like burning out, and it's fun. And we talked about this even in our bodybuilding cast. You know, a lot of like CrossFitters are gravitating towards bodybuilding style stuff, odd objects. Some of them are getting into kettlebells, even though they don't really know how to like lift them properly, which isn't a bad thing. Like hopefully they eventually figure it out. But they're exploring right now, and that's that thing. It's that exploration. Like
I was experimenting in college for a little bit.
Exactly. They're still kind of experimenting and figuring it out. But the idea here is like, don't demonize it. And like, I am so much about all the styles, and this is what I'm talking about kettlebells right now. All the styles have a time and a place. There's certain movements that are performed in some styles that I don't like for a mechanical reason, or I don't think is necessarily the best for longevity. And I'm not going to get into that and like pick up people's stuff. But we absorb into RX, like into Jeff's style. It's a constantly evolving program. And it's funny that I, as you know, his like right-hand man, like came back around full circle to the thing I didn't like in the beginning that Jeff did. And I kind of would like not talk about it as much. I'm like, you know, it wouldn't be my reference point when I talk about Jeff. I talk about Jeff, you know, being an extremely knowledgeable source. I talk about his sport lifting. You know, he's a master
grandfather of American kettlebelling.
Yeah. Well, he's like, and like master sport lifter and all this stuff. A ton of combatives. Like anybody that wants to like throw hands with Jeff, good job.
Watch out.
He's just waiting. Just wait.
He's got his mouth guard in his pocket. He's ready.
Yeah. We'll have Jeff on here at one time, and it'll be great.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, because he's got like I say that, and I'm like, yeah, Jeff will like get after some people, but then Jeff's got his friends that are like, you know, the dudes that are like he works with on like it's ridiculous, and they're just like, what are they talking about, Jeff? What you mean? Who's he beating up? I'm like, everybody, you guys are just a bunch of just knuckle draggers that are just taking it to the world. But in the context of it, it's like Jeff did something that was very similar to flow, and I wasn't really into it because I didn't see the repackaging of it directly into a strength and conditioning style class or something like that. So we created a place for it, and it has done wonders for a gym. I would highly recommend people to get in the know on how to do this kind of stuff. Now, for us per se, I know there are some courses and stuff like that out there that cover like pretty in-depth rotational movements and stuff like that, and we don't get that crazy in the rotational stuff. It's just like plays on the basics to get advanced. So again, you got to come from their fundamentals. So get into a course and getting an idea first, and then exploring the movements as you go through it. So if you're doing like flows in like a style of practice to get better with your movements, awesome. But apply, like do something with it.
And is this the class to put in a new gym? No. Probably
not. I don't know.
Or with the level of...
What do you think? I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think so. I guess the class would...
These people that are getting a hold of me
are
are like asking, and they're like, well, should we put flow classes? Like, and how
well,
does
I guess
that structure
the level
work?
of your... As long as the level of your flow accurately reflects the level of athlete that you have in your class, you're pushing them without being irresponsible.
We also have to be a damn
then
good
I
coach.
Guess,
if you're going to get fancy with your lifts and you're teaching and building and like putting them under duress as they're learning, like can you and it's so funny because the word flow, like I use it for so many things outside of just talking about the context of like kettlebell flows. Like, can you flow it all together? Can you like seamlessly transition between these things? And man, do I think it makes a better coach too.
Like you were saying in another podcast about not feeling super comfortable with a bilingual class.
Yep.
Flow is where I'm pushed out of my comfort zone when sometimes I realize, oh wow, I've been relatively silent the last minute and a half because I'm just trying not to die. Or yeah, spoiler alert, guys, I work hard too. To everyone who's like, oh, AJ, you make that look so easy. I'm dying. And if I say the wrong, I say right instead of left, or clean instead of snatch, or whatever, that's the class that makes me a better coach and keeps me on my toes, so that when I go into an hour class, I'm like, oh, whatever, I got this.
Yeah. Well, and like we've had some interns that like avoid it like the plague, like terrified.
That'll hold a mirror up to your coaching skills.
Yeah,
real
terrified.
Quick.
I'm like, so like I have, and like a big thing that we talk about. I'm sure I don't know if we've actually talked about this on one of our podcasts. I'm pretty sure we have. Is your coaching identity, like who you are as a coach, how you're going to convey yourself. But like, is your coaching identity? We just had a podcast too where we were talking about like street level coaches and things like that. But is your coaching identity like someone that's only going to go up and read the whiteboard and then only go through a program progression that and only be able to do this and only be able to do that? And if something short circuits, like, is the whole class haywire?
You just got to start from the beginning.
I've seen it happen to coaches, and they just paralysis, and they like. It doesn't mean the class goes bad, but like then things just aren't going as smooth in the class. And
well, to keep it back to that like performance or like persona metaphor. You know, I've seen people, and I've been this person, dancing on stage or in class getting
She's
ready for a recital.
Ballet, guys.
Well, it could be any kind of dance, whatever. Getting ready for a recital, and they mess up and they can't start from where they messed up. They have to go back to whatever, the beginning of the course or whatever, and go through the whole thing again because they're not super flexible. They're not comfortable enough with the movements yet. And so I think it's kind of a similar thing. You know, are you just roboting through, and that's one level of coaching. Are you ready to go to the next level where you can be flexible and work with anyone and everyone, and pull another cue out of your pocket when this one's not working or whatever.
Well, and so we did an interview with Jesse Bufano up in Squamish, and we were talking with him about how he runs his classes and stuff like that. And he's got like a very in-depth program and different programs and stuff people do. And we spoke on that one too. Like, we used to have 4 or 5 classes that we ran like at a time in one class, even before we had the big mega facility down in like Soto. And I was kind of telling them how and like my buddy Mike was talking about, he's like, yeah, it seems like you kind of circle back around to like one workout on the board. And I'm like, well, what I tell my coaches all the time is that the board is the blueprint, and there's push, pull, hinge, carry on there, and there's a goal orientation, there's intensity windows and things that we're looking for, but you can make it work for anybody, because we have a lot of people that come in here who are injured, not injured in here, but they come from outside the gym, and they like, I heard you can work with anyone, and we can. And so the coach needs to learn, like, read the matrix and see how to make the program work for people. So what we found is we hit critical mass really on our classes. And like, I felt like there was a division, even though they were still getting the same results. Like the kettlebell people were over here, the massive performance people over here, And a lot of those programs would just come off blocks or cycles of training that I do, and people loved certain ones. So I've just found a better way to flow it all together into the main program. Now, I don't have a problem with people that run multiple programs. It just wasn't what we wanted to go with anymore. And I've been doing it for 10 years. Like, I've seen what I like about that, and I've seen what I don't like about it. It was always fun having, like, the crazy class going with, like, everyone's doing this over here and they're doing this over here, and they're kind of getting in, and they come back together for the conditioning, and everyone's having a good time. But it was, you start becoming like the referee for the class instead of like running the class. You're just making sure everyone's staying safe.
You're facilitating rather than instructing.
Exactly. And like, then again, you're losing that connection with the athlete and the coaches. And people feel that connection with us too, because like for where I would feel like maybe like disconnected people, like there's still so much like connection, like tone it down a little bit. But like, that isn't what I wanted. Now, for someone that's like, well, Zach, you've trained all these athletes in your gym to like really respond well to the program, and now I'm just like picking apart a couple people that come in, and they're not getting that chance to work with the beta group from the start. So like when my coaches come in, and the interns come in here to leave to go open gyms. That's the point of the internship. Something like a flow class is very, very beneficial, because that's where they can make their own mistakes. They can learn how to better guide a class of people, how to work around like mavericks in the room that like kind of throw you off. And it's like what you said in a previous cast, that you're not having your interns or newer coaches teach the foundation. Like, if that's like where people are going to be learning all their basics and fundamentals to make sure that the whole gym is not like running, like falling apart, then like the big thing is that it needs to be guided correctly. Now, if you want a place that you can put your athlete or your coaches in there for them to get a good learning curve, then yeah, have them work on like something like a flow class. And AJ said the word boot camp, guys. It's not a boot camp. I really wish you hadn't even said that. You're like, I liked boot camp back in the day. These classes are nowhere near boot camp.
No. I was just comparing to why, like, what.
I know. I just want to clarify that to everybody, that like what we're doing with that, it is that like 30 minutes of, but it's like way more like, and again, the movement actually is more, the complexity is probably higher than what most people would feel comfortable with in their regular lifting anyways. It's just we're structuring it as we're going.
Yeah,
so,
I just meant as a 13-year-old,
yes,
I like constant movement. And as a 27-year-old with a lot more training years under my belt, this is the kind of constant movement that I enjoy.
Well, and what I'll tell you too, to the people that get a hold of us, no one. No, literally no one. No, to all of you that get a hold of me.
I can't wait to talk about my skincare routine.
Yeah. To all you that get a hold of me about this kind of stuff, what I really want to get across is like some people will not like these classes. They will not like them because if they're coming into CrossFits and stuff like that and they're used to seeing the workout of the day and knowing what they're doing and mentally preparing, some of them don't like not knowing what's happening. And then like the intensity's ramping, it's building, and they're like, it's getting harder. We're 10 minutes in. There's another 20 minutes of this. Like, how many more reps is that going to add? Like, he's got that wild look in his eye.
I'm not going to lie. I have looked at the clock when I'm participating in class, not running it. And Zach's like, all right, guys, now let's get a heavier belt. Like, how many? Why is there more than half the class left?
So for those people, like, if people don't like it, and just nurture the class. There will be people that like it, and some people will come to an event like every once in a while. And maybe they come like once every 2 or 3 weeks, and they do like a little bit of variance to add to their program. And some people, it might be like what they just want to do, and that's cool. And there ain't nothing wrong with flow, man. It ain't a crime. But like, if you're not training to elicit some kind of response, like I got off of that, like train with a purpose. Everything must be with a purpose. The movement should benefit other parts of your training, being healthier, fitter, but it doesn't always, need to be like the insane athlete mindset. And in fact, that's unhealthy for a lot of people, myself included, to get so in depth in that. And my girlfriend's a great example. Sometimes I'm like, just enjoy the training today. Like, back it down right now. Like, I know you trained at OTC and all that stuff, but right now we're just training. And that's what draws a lot of people in, is that they do like that community activity and like the team aspect to it. And they remember when like practices were fun and things like that. Training can be fun too. It should be serious as well. But this is a great way to kind of start people on that path. So if you're a kettlebell coach or a lifter out there and you're just doing flows, you need to like integrate some strength training into your client base. Unless you've been working with them for a long time and you feel like this is just, they're now maintenance mode and they're healthier because you're doing that. I always say when we teach courses, like, I ain't selling snake oil. I kind of give an explanation on why. Like, my view of what a flow is probably dramatically different than some of the people that you find online doing it. And they could totally like come on the podcast, guys. Get a hold of me if you're one of those people. And you're like, dude, I just flow all day. I want to hear about it. I want to learn. I want to put like thought process of that into my own training. I want to like make that aware to CrossFitters that I work with too. And that's how we'll all become better. But like, just straight. And I can tell you, because like when we were working as CrossFit Kettlebell, and like people are like, ugh, every other kettlebell organization, ugh, and you guys just do American swings, ugh, and like, get over yourself. It's like you invented the kettlebell. It wasn't even invented to be like a kettlebell at first. It was just a weight. All right. What people will do with it is what they're going to do with it. Don't lie to somebody and say they're going to get a 600-pound deadlift because they're doing like kettlebell juggling. They're not. Okay. But will there be purpose behind it? Yes. If you vary it up, focus on positioning in all of your lifting, you're going to have results. Our flow classes kind of like demonstrate that too. And they're one of I actually really like doing them. Doesn't mean I don't like slinging weight, lifting big bells, and still doing my Olympic lifts and things like that too. But it's one of the other training aspects I like to do.
But this is one case where you can have it all.
Yeah, exactly. Just vary up your program, guys. It's a 30-minute class. I'm sure we'll revisit this topic. Maybe we'll have some hardcore flow people on. We can talk about that. I'd love to have you guys on. But for the most part, I'm just really on here saying, like, don't be afraid to experiment with your training. It doesn't mean that every day is an experiment, because then you are not on any kind of path really to have returnable results that you're going to see, right? There needs to be some consistency. And for us, it's push, pull, hinge, carry movement patterns. And we just put them in there in different training styles, and it works. So if you guys are interested in catching one of our flow classes, you have to be in Seattle to do that. We are at CrossFit Hinge down in South Park. So get a hold of us if you're going to be in town. Come try one out. I'm never going to like live stream one, but hopefully this guy gives you guys a little bit more information on like how I view flow. I'm out there trying to champion for the longer complex series, and like why what some people would seem as a complicated training model to me is more of a simplified training model. Like, here's how you can actually put these things into a class. You have to lead it. It is coming out of your head. They're following you. That's how it's done. Otherwise, it doesn't work on a board or on a written thing. And I just don't see the validity of it. So there is my stance on flow. We'll certainly do another one, but that's for everybody that's been asking us for like a little breakdown on that and just why I've been out there championing for it. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, AJ's a rock star at teaching those classes too. And I enjoy them vigorously, and we've both been like lifters and CrossFitters. So I say just try it out, guys. See what happens. And if you do want to like get some further information on getting it into a class, like shoot us an email, and I'll give you the best information I can. But if you haven't listened to this podcast, the email will be, check out this podcast first. So with that said, guys, when all else fails,
fresh tactics.
Fresh tactics.